Hey everybody, Lawrence here coming at you with another one. Recently I started thinking, it's like, necromancers, would they have guardians such as golems or different things? But it's like, what kind of guardian would truly fit a necromancer? I mean, yeah, there's rock golems, all different types, all different types of things. But what would truly fit for a necromancer? Well, I came up with my answer: maggot golems. I figured it's like, I'm sure there's plenty of maggots around where a necromancer works, protecting his area, and he would need something. He would need guardians. So I came up with a maggot golem. Now I'm going to walk you guys through how I actually made these. A bit of a process, but it was still fun, and I'm very happy with how they turned out. But before we get to it, I want to thank my patrons because, as always, your guys' help is always greatly appreciated. Dungeon Matron, Mia Geek, Quarel, Sykes, I can't thank you guys enough. All right, let's get to it. This part's relatively simple. I'm just cutting a couple blocks of foam to make for the lower portion of the legs for these golems. I'm not really measuring. Everything here is just eyeball to the rough height that I want, and I'm kind of cutting away all the sharp edges. Though honestly, these cuts can be really rough. In the end, they are going to be completely, and I mean completely, covered up. So they do not have to look pretty. This is just, like I said, the lower half of the leg. And this is, I'm cutting for a substructure for the golems itself. And the same here as the lower half of the legs. I'm completely eyeballing this. This is for the upper half of the legs. They're the thighs, whatever you want to call it. It's just roughing out a shape for the substructure of what I'm building. But again, it doesn't have to look pretty. This is an eyeball. It's like, yeah, that looks good. Because everything's going to be covered. And here I'm using another offcut piece of foam. Don't ask me the dimensions. I have no idea because these were all pulled out of my offcut bins. And right now I'm just carving up the crotch. Just to connect the two legs, the legs together. And like I said, cut a little bit away, test fit it, cut a little bit away, test fit it. And with the first one, since I got a rough idea of what it was a little bit easier for me to do the second one. As you can see, I just matched it up with the first one for the second one. And, just cut away to it's roughly to where you want, and then shave away whatever you want to where it looks good and will work for you. Now I decided I wanted these to be like walking forward or striding, whatever you want to call it. So I'm cutting an angle at the joints of at the knee joints. Just so they just don't look so boring just standing there like, ooh, me golem, me stand. No, I want it to be like it's perfectly striding towards its enemies. So just cut a little angles, match them up together, and I'm adding the toothpicks just to give it a little extra stability while building. Because in the end, the toothpicks won't be necessary, but while you're building, they will be. It'll just give it a little extra strength and prevent it from snapping apart. At least that's what I was telling myself. But again, one leg going forward, one leg going back. It just so it wasn't boring. Now I'm actually attaching the crutch. I'm doing a little more trimming because I wasn't entirely happy with it. Again, I wasn't entirely sure what the end product was going to look like at this point. So I was being a little cautious with how I was shaving it. But again, it's just a matter of shaving, the top where the hip joints where it actually attaches to the crotch piece, and adding toothpicks just when I attach them. No, I've used both PVA and hot glue in this process, but you can go either way. But I'm still adding the toothpicks just to give it a little bit of extra stability, because I know I'm going to be a little bit rough with these while adding later steps. So I just wanted to give it that extra. Again, I wanted to give it that extra stability and strength, because I didn't want it breaking apart while building it, because that would have been a pain in the butt. But again, it's just matching it up, the legs to the hips, and just getting it to that right spot where it's giving it that stride that I was going for. Now here I'm actually going to start carving away for the torso, or the chest and the abdomen, and just kind of matching it up with the hip area, and just want to actually start carving away. Of course, use a marker to match it up a little bit better, and just start carving away, small pieces, always, and constantly test putting it up against the lower half of the body, just so I make sure it's where I want it to be. And this keeps me from leaving too much or taking too much away, and I shave away small parts. And of course, I also have to make a socket, or an area where the arms are actually going to attach, so I'm cutting away small parts for the shoulders, and just, like I said, cut small parts away. I know I always say this, but you can always shave a little more extra off, but once you take it off, it's a little hard to put back on. And there you go. Now that I got the torso done, time to start carving arms, or the substructure for the arms. And I'm using some smaller, thinner pieces for this. And like I said, just carving away the upper half of the arm and getting an idea of where I want it to go into the torso. It's a process of cutting away samples, cutting at angles, how you want it, and just constantly test fitting. I can't stress how much test fitting is important. And get it in, and there's the upper half of the arm. It's a pretty simple process, and it's really easy to do. Now that I have the upper half of the arms done, I need to cut the lower half of the arms. It's near identical to the upper half of the arms. It's just shaving it down, shaving the foam down to it's to the right size. I know making these slight small cuts makes a big mess, but again, I'd rather take not enough off, because I can always take more off if I need to. And angle the cut where the lower half attaches to the upper half to where I like it, and then I'll hot glue it in place. Now, I know I'm not putting toothpicks in like I did with the legs, and honestly, it wound up being unnecessary in the end, but now that I'm actually seeing this, it's like I really should have put toothpicks in for some extra strength, but now that I've got most of the body done, I want to actually start cutting out an area for the head. This is just basically, I'm cutting down in the torso a little bit. And of course, now I want to start cutting out the heads. And again, none of this has to look perfect or exactly how it should be, because again, this is all going to be covered up. Now it's just a matter of getting a rough shape of the head, hot gluing it in place, and boom, I have a head. Okay, now let's start covering these puppies up. To bulk them out and to smooth out all the gaps and stuff, I'm just using some simple DOS air drying clay here. This is a stone texture. It doesn't matter. The only real difference from one DOS clay to the other is the color. But I'm just using an old paintbrush. Or no, actually, I'm using a sculpting tool. I just needed something round to flatten out the clay itself. And I want to work with a little more edged square piece, so I'm just kind of trimming it down a bit and getting it to the right width that I need for the legs, because I'm going to show you how I did the legs, but every other place of the body was the same. Now, DOS clay, not very, when you're trying to stick it to foam, it can be a bit of a pain in the butt, but it's just a matter of mashing it into place. And this
And as you can see, it hides all the gaps and holes and stuff really well, and it bulks out the figure as well, which is what my real purpose for using the clay. And it's air dry, so you don't have to bake it or anything like that. And this is just a process of kneading it into place. And I got some water off to the side that I'm using, that I'm dipping my fingers in to help smooth out the clay itself. And it really does help. And of course, also here I'm using some sculpting tools, which are really cheap. I think you can even get these at the Dollar Tree. I think I picked these up at Walmart in the where did I get them? In the cake baking section where they have all the fondant and stuff. But again, it's just a matter of trying to work it in, maybe add a little bit of muscle texture to it. But again, still, it doesn't have this. We are not at the part where it has to look pretty because this is mainly going to be. Now I actually want to start working on the claws for the feet. There's going to be 2 in the front and 1 in the back, but this is just a milliput that I mixed up real quick, and I kind of made a sausage, and now I shaped it into like a pseudo claw like thing, but it's just a matter right now I'm trying to smooth it out or blend it into the base and into the foot of the golem, just to smooth it out and get it ready for the texturing step, which is coming up really soon. Of course, I'm using some cheap sculpting tools that I picked up, I think at Walmart, yeah. And just get it to the point where I want to start adding texture. Now, as you can see, I'm adding some segment lines just to give it that, like the claws of the feet themselves are giant maggots. So it's just a matter of adding like those body segments, and then I'm coming back and adding some more texture lines across. It really simple, but that little extra just makes it look really sick and gross. Now I'm using some dinosaur skeletons that I got from Temu because I want to give the backs of these golems a spine, just because it looks gross and it's cool. Makes it look pretty. But no, it's just a matter of cutting back part of the spine off to make it flat so it'll sit against the golem better. And I'm just using a strip of super glue gel from the Dollar Tree and just gluing it in place. And I don't feel like holding it there in place, so I'm just grabbing my activator quick and then spraying real quick, and boom, the spine's on. It doesn't look great right now, but I'm actually using a mixture of milliput and green stuff here, and I'm going to start covering up that big gap between the spine and the golem itself, just to smooth it out so it looks more natural, I guess. I don't know. This is a maggot golem. How natural can that be? A big writhing pile of maggots walking towards you. Yeah, that's natural. But no, this is just a matter of using the green stuff milliput mixture and then just molding it into place and then smoothing out so it looks like it's actually it's not, so it doesn't look like it's just stuck on like it does right now. This will just makes it pop a little more. I'll smooth it out, and then I'm going to add a bunch of texture lines using various tools. Just a bunch of lines just kind of look like muscles and just gross stuff. I want to start working on the claws for the arms. This is near identical process to the ones on the feet, but this is going to be a green stuff and milliput mixture to give a little extra strength. And I had cut and inserted pieces of paper clip just to give it a little extra strength, because this is going to be hanging and not sitting straight on the base, so need a little extra support for while I was sculpting and working. But it's just a matter of blending it into the wrist area, and then adding the segment lines and more texture, the same as I did with the feet. But again, like I said, I put the toothpick in to give it a little structure stability while working on it. And also, I mixed in green stuff because the green stuff will give it a little extra strength as well. Okay, now this part may or may not be necessary depending on how you feel, but I wanted to sculpt a bit of a face into this at the moment, so I put on a thin layer of the green stuff milliput mixture and just started smoothing it out till it gets to a point where I'm happy with it, blending it into the rest of the model itself. It can be a bit boring, honestly, but now I want to start carving in some eyes, or sculpting in some eyes and a mouth, and get it to a point where I'm happy with it. And these are actually fondant tools in a cake mix. I think I got these at Dollar Tree? Yeah, Dollar Tree. But again, it's just a matter of blending, a bit of carving, and get it to a point where I'm happy with how the face looks. It actually wound up kind of giving me Jack the Pumpkin King vibes when I was done. But hey, whatever. I thought it looked good. But again, most of this, you can get almost the same effect just with the maggots that are coming itself. But I did it because it also gave me a guide of where to put the maggots on the face. So, take that for what it is. But again, I'm just carving in a basic face, no real detail and stuff, because I'm going to be covering a good chunk of it up in a little bit. Very soon, actually. But again, I carve until I'm happy with how it looks. As you can see, I even did like little eyebrows, which were really unnecessary. Okay, now the fun part. I have this roller maker from Green Stuff World. You can use it to make cables and tentacles and different stuff. But I'm using it to make maggots. And I put in small amounts of little sausages of the Green Stuff milliput mixture and just start slapping it on all over these things. Now, my buddy over Earthman Brick over on his channel, I'll put a link in the description. He actually made a roller maker, does the same thing using Lego bits. Like I said, I'll put a link in the description for his video where he actually uses it, and it works perfectly. I think he uses it to make cables and stuff like that. And it does the exact same thing this roller maker I bought from Green Stuff World does. So, you have options. You don't have to buy the roller maker. You can make your own roller maker out of Lego pieces if you want to. I'm lazy, but again, this is just a matter of making maggot after maggot after maggot over and over and over again. It'll get monotonous, so put on a good video to listen to while you're doing this and just slap maggots all over this thing and cover the entire thing up, except for the claws. And as you can see, the thing is completely covered with maggots. I would have showed you the process of that, but you saw how I made the maggots and putting them on. If I had showed you the whole process for even just one, it would have been, this video would have been a couple hours long. But right now I'm just taking care of the base and covering it with my homemade texture paste just to give it a little, so it's not quite so flat. And give it a little bit of undulations and whatnot in the base itself. Just use an old beat up brush, paint it on until I'm done. It's pretty simple. Now that I got that done, I decided, yeah, let's add some sand. So I'm dipping it into the construction sand I got here and tapping it off. Quick, easy. Now that everything's dry and cured, it's time to actually start painting these suckers. I'm going to start off by priming it with some Vallejo airbrush paint primer through my airbrush. You can use a rattle can for this. It's just what I chose. I have the airbrush. It's sitting right next to me, so I'm going to use it. But it goes on real quick. Just, yeah, I may have sprayed a little heavy on this, but there's a lot of recesses in this thing. So I just wanted to make sure I got everything good, covered, and black. Both of them. I mean, like I said, you can see nooks and crannies all over this thing, and I wanted to make sure I got every last nook and cranny. So, yeah, I'm spraying a little close, but, you know, yeah, it is what it is. My plan to paint these is to slap chop, so I'm going to give them a gray, like a mid-tone light gray dry brush real quick. And I'm actually using a dry brush for miniatures. Go figure. Not a makeup brush for once. But no, this dry brush, normally I would just grab the makeup brushes, but this was given to me by a friend, so I'm going to use it. But then I said I'm just giving a quick dry brush just to highlight all the details and stuff. Now that I've got everything dry brush gray, I'm going to give it a quick highlight dry brush with some white, going from the top down, just to accentuate where the lights hit it, you know, leaving like the undersides alone. I said I'm trying to dry brush from the top down, if that makes any sense. And this will make painting it with, I intend to paint these with speed paints, and this will just make that process a lot easier. Grab my contrast skeleton horde, I think that's what it's called, and I've already shaken it up really well, and I'm just gonna slop it all over every last maggot there is, and there's a lot of them, because I found that color kind of matches what the look I'm going for, so it's just close enough. So I figured, well, let's just sloppy paint this thing all over. And the speed paints really help. I am taking caution to avoid the muscle texture in the back, because that's going to be painted a different color. But again, this is basically a big slap chop model, so just real quick, get it all over and try and hit every last maggot I can. wasn't quite happy with how it looks, so I'm grabbing some Reichland Flesh Shade, and I'm just going to give all the maggots a wash, just to darken them up and make them look a more darker color than what they are. Like I said, that's a great thing about painting. If you're not happy with it, you can do things to adjust how it looks. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I wasn't entirely happy with how they turned out, so I'm just giving it a wash, and washes, magic in a bottle. And just to darken them up, because that's what I wanted to do. Now I'm grabbing my Ghillie Doo speed paint, because while the golems themselves look pretty cool right now, I want to adjust it, and I'm going to use some speed paint medium to thin it out so it's not straight up Ghillie Doo. I want to give some of the maggots a slightly different color tint to it, so that's why I'm watering down the Ghillie Doo like a 50-50 mix, and just almost just staining some of them like a green tint. Well, the big mass of maggots looks kind of cool. It was just all one color, so I just wanted to change up a little bit here and there, just to make them pop a little bit better and give it some visual interest. I mean, that's what. Let's face it, when we're doing monsters and models, it's all about eye candy. So just changing it up a little bit made it so much better for what I wanted, and I just really like the idea of like some green tinted maggots. Maybe like I can use them as like, you can also suffer poison after being attacked, but you have a chance of being poisoned by an attack from one of these. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But again, this is just picking out some random maggots and just tinting them green. Now I'm going to use some Slaughter Red speed paint for the flesh areas on the back. Same as before, add some Slaughter Red and add some... Actually, I'm adding some Cultist Cloak just to darken it up a little bit, because I didn't want it to be real bright red. And then I'm adding some speed paint medium to thin it out a little bit, because I didn't want to go for the straight up color. I like thinning them down a little bit, because once the paint's on, it's a pain in the butt, and I can always, if I'm not entirely happy, I can always add a second coat. Too thin goes, But again, this is all for the flesh areas in the back, just to make it look like ripped open muscles and whatnot. Like the maggots are actually, it's not just a pile of maggots walking towards you. It's like it was something. Now here I'm actually using some bony matter, and I'm going to be painting the spinal column in the back. And this is actually just straight up bony matter. No watering down, just straight out of the bottle. I said, I just, for this, this is what I wanted to do. It looks gross and disgusting, And that's what I was going for. Now it's time to start working on the base, and I'm going to be going with my standard paint colors because it'll match all my terrain. And here I'm using a dark brown or burnt umber, and just going over everywhere that's not part of the golem, and giving as much close to 100% coverage as I possibly can. And here I'm using a mid-tone brown, which is a nutmeg brown from Apple Barrel, and giving all the base areas a quick overbrush, leaving the darkest, leaving like the cracks and crevices on it. It's just a quick overbrush, real quick, real simple, real easy. And now I'm using a light mocha as a highlight or a dry brush over the base areas. Just it makes it pop and gives it almost the light dusty feeling to it. I guess, yeah, that works. Yeah, light dusty feeling. That's what I'm doing. Yeah, I know what I'm doing. And of course, now I'm going to use some watered down 50-50 mix of water and PVA, just paint it on in different areas where I want flocking to go. And I said, just brush it on real quick in areas that I want grass to be. And I'm using my standard colors of earth. This is all fine turf. I'm using earth, burnt grass, and then a yellow grass as a highlight. And of course, I want to add some grass tufts. I'm using huge miniatures, desert overgrown tufts. I just like the color of them, so that's why I'm using them. Gives it like a dead feeling, dead dry out feeling. And it's a matter of just dipping them into some PVA, putting where I think they look good, and boom, done. Okay, now the fun part, where I add real mealworms or maggots. Now, if you're using something like, I'm using some 5-minute epoxy, I put a drop of sienna in there and an equal amount of rubbing alcohol, and just give it a good mix. I add the sienna in just to color it up so it's not. And see, real freeze-dried mealworms. Dip it in, give it a full coat so it's completely covered, and then just place it on anywhere that I think it looks good. Yeah, you can use real freeze-dried maggots or mealworms. These just happen to be mealworms. But as long as they're completely sealed in, they're not going to rot. I have stuff that I've done like this that I've had for 2 years, and they're still good. They look the same as the day I crafted. So, it's just a matter of completely sealing them in the epoxy and I just want to sprinkle them all over the base, kind of like, they're just dropping as it's coming towards you, just to give you like a sense of dread and doom. And as you can see, you only have so much time to work with it. Well, I am incredibly happy with these turned out. Were there a few steps I would have done differently for this? Yeah, probably. If I ever do it again, which I probably won't. But I'm really happy, and these are going to look great on the tabletop. Definitely will give players a sense of dread.
Hey everybody, if you made it this far, it means you watched the end, and as always, I really do appreciate it. If you liked the video, hit the thumbs up. If you want to see more, click subscribe. Leave a comment. That'll help the video out too. If you want to get a hold of me directly, come to my Discord channel. I would love to see pictures of what you guys are making. I really would. I was really happy with how these turned out. They're disgusting, they're nasty, and they'll give give players a nightmare on the table. So I just got to come up with stats for these. But again, guys, as always, when you're making your terrain or your monsters, the only person you got to worry about is you, because it's your terrain or monsters.